All right, I have 7 o'clock, so we can call the meeting for March 31, 2020 of the Oxford Selectmen to order. I'd like to read this statement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order concerning imposition on strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, meetings in the town of Oxford are being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as possible for in the order. And before we start, I would like the board, if you wouldn't mind, just taking a moment to just remember all these people that are infected, those that have passed away, the people that are involved, all our essential workers, police, fire department, nurses, doctors, anyone I haven't missed. If you just take a moment and think of them in your thoughts, I'd appreciate it. All right. Thank you. Hope you didn't mind that. First item on our agenda is the Oxford update on COVID-19 response. I'll open that to our town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Because this is a remote participation, I just want to remind everyone, unless you're speaking just on the bottom left-hand corner, just place yourself on mute. And then when you want to speak, unmute. And that's only to prevent a lot of reverberation that we had to doctor up the last time in our meetings. It's all new technology. I thank everybody, particularly the citizens who are tuning in. I wanted to begin by reminding the board it's only been a week since our last meeting, and there have been many, many things that have occurred. And so my intention is just to update you since last Tuesday, March 24th. Perhaps one of the most important things is today, once again, the governor has issued an extension of the previous order number 13, which once again calls for low density social distancing rules and garners what's an essential employee and not. That is going into effect tomorrow at 12 noon. And now, instead of it being April 6th or 7th, it's going all the way out to May 4th. So that's very important for our citizens to know that that order and those notices for compliance for every municipality will continue until May 4th. Secondly, some good news on March 28th over the weekend. I was heartened to finally see that the federal government did declare Massachusetts as a federal disaster related to COVID-19. That's very important to us in terms of future reimbursements and potential assistance federally for fighting the pandemic as it comes at us. Since last Tuesday, matter of fact, the day after our meeting, we had our first positive COVID case that we were alerted by the Department of Public Health that was here in town. On March 30th, yesterday, we had another confirmed second case of COVID virus that was alerted to us by the Department of Public Health. I want to make sure that the public understands that the Department of Public Health, through its public health nurses and our Board of Health agent, are following up and investigating every presumptive and every positive confirmatory case. There are active cases of investigation going on still. And I say this because it's very important for the public to understand this is not a sprint. It will be a marathon. And the governor today is alerting the public that our expected anticipated beginning of the surge could be as much as 2 weeks away. Having said that, We do have our law enforcement on tap this evening, and I can say unequivocally between the fire department, our DPW, and our police departments, there has been as much preparation and continues to be. And tonight I'm going to go over some of the things that have occurred even since our last meeting. We have sent the Director of Accounts at the Department of Revenue through this board's proactive vote last week to ask for the authorization to do emergency expenditures in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. That will allow us to actually move money where we need it and to account for those expenditures, because reminding everybody, we're at the end of the fiscal year. Nobody saw a pandemic, nor did we talk about it when we were making appropriations at last year's town meeting. That letter has gone out. You have it in your packets there. And I think it's important to note that this board was very proactive, and I appreciate them following up on that recommendation. The next item is to let you know that one of the things we're trying to do is use social media as much as possible. Our website, our Facebook pages, we do have a YouTube website that is also putting out these meetings and our prior meetings. As many people know, it's been on the Board of Selectmen's agenda in the past about Access Oxford and our PEG channels actually having a change to that per order of the Department of Revenue, and Access Oxford recently had indicated to the town that they would be dissolving, and so they actually don't have the same manpower that they used to. I reached out to Mr. Troiano and talked to him about the dilemma that we have on wanting to make sure that we can get our bulletin scribe back up and running for public notices. He was very heartened and understood how important this was. I really thank him for working in tandem with me and my staff, and we will again start to issue on the town and the Access Oxford channel the regular ability to post bulletin notices in addition to the bulletins we're posting everywhere else. The other thing that we have come to figure out, since we're not allowing people access into this building and we really don't want people filming, this meeting is not live right now, but it will be posted on the Access Oxford website. We will be creating copies and DVDs. And so I've asked Access Oxford to actually post the last several of them, and they will do that. So I want to thank Access Oxford for working with us at this very difficult time. Once again, we were going through some normal business transactions with Access Oxford. Nobody saw this pandemic coming, and they've stepped up to the plate, and I'm very sincerely appreciative of that. I also want the board and the town to know that I've been in touch with our newly appointed acting superintendent, Christine Nash. We had a lengthy conversation about all of the things that have been going on in the school system. I just want to highlight two because I know it's very important. The first being the fact that the school department was taking very seriously its meals that was providing to students at school for both breakfast and lunch. We know, particularly for lower income students, that was very important to their nutrition. Today, I have been informed that they are up to 135 per day. When they first started, as they were trying to get the word out, there was probably about 38. That number has upticked, and by the end of the week, they expect that to be at 150 students. And the school is preparing both the breakfast and the lunch, and they're doing a curbside pickup for those families. And through today, since March 19th, they have actually done over 850 meals for the students. So I really think that's terrific, and it brings out a whole nother area that we're going to discuss a little bit later, but that's important for the community to know that's happening. The other thing the superintendent alerted me is, since people are not in the schools, the custodial staff is doing a very deep cleaning, room by room, corridor by corridor, and that will take a great deal of time, but they are in the midst of doing that, and that is very important for them to accomplish. The next item is to alert the board. The last time we were together, I had indicated that I had submitted a Board of Health needs assessment to the Department of Public Health, looking for any kind of grant assistance. And I'm pleased to say that since we met last week, the town has been awarded $10,000, particularly for our Board of Health surveillance and monitoring of actual cases in town. So that is very important. And on the heels of that, the state then wanted us to submit an updated accounting of what else we may need. And I want the board to know that on March 27th, late on Friday, I made sure that we actually provided a new assessment. As days go by, it's becoming more and more apparent to our Board of Health agents and also our public health nurse, the kinds of things that we need in terms of being able to not only follow up and investigate, but to provide families and those people with questions, presumptive case or positive, with the supports they need. So a new request has gone in, and it's focused purely on increasing our public health nursing capacity here in town, as well as there's another component that Chief McDonald is working on with MEMA, in which we both sat down and started to think about how Worcester is preparing for surge cases. And, if we were to have one of our condo complexes, Orchard Hill Estates or our senior complex actually have an outbreak, but yet people were not sick enough to, or there were not beds available in the city of Worcester, what would we be doing? And right now, I'm not aware of any other regional or local regional facility. So we have been looking and exploring with MEMA, the now closed former assisted nursing facility on Pine Street. MEMA has been in touch with us. It has been moved up to the higher level. Of course, if this was going to be a lower level or step down treatment facility, it would need to be staffed and manned and be able to do essential functions. So they're right now looking at those things, and they will get back to the town. But right now, I just wanted to let you know our public safety team is trying to be very proactive in working with MEMA for those purposes. The next item is just to alert the board that there are some very positive things that continue to happen in this town, and it's because we have great people working on them. First of all, I want to alert the community that our Oxford food shelf, after going back and forth about what we really truly needed them to do in order to comply with the governor's orders for social distancing and disinfecting and sanitizing protocols, they were able to meet the number of procedures and processes I had put in place. John Nealand had put his volunteers together, and they were able to do their first curbside delivery of 63 families here in town for food assistance. My hat goes off to him and all of the volunteers. Having said that, I have already started to be concerned now, particularly with the governor's orders of pushing off the social distancing and compliance of stay home at order. The concern becomes, as this pandemic grows, what do we do for nutritional assistance, not for our Meals on Wheels seniors, but more for all the other seniors who may not want to go out of their homes at all and may start to actually find their resources in their home dwindling. I've asked and met with both John Nealand and Laura LeBreton, who's an active volunteer. We are now actually looking at how we may be able to provide food assistance and outreach to seniors who are already finding that their resources may be dwindling at home. I will update the board at our next meeting and as we make progress on that. The next item is to just let people know another bit of good news is that the library is doing some innovative things, and I ask parents who have children at home to think about looking at the library's website. The children's librarian has been doing live Facebook story times. They're working with a lot of the patrons on how to access digital collections. And of course, they're also doing an awful lot of in-depth professional development, which they rarely get to do. And they're going to be using all of that as they come back online in terms of being in the facility in the future. So Brittany McDougall's doing a great job, and she wanted the board to be updated on that. The next thing is to let the board know, in terms of public safety, that the North Fire Station is manned 24 hours a day. We do have a team that is there, and that will continue not only through the pandemic, we're hoping, but into the perpetuity after the pandemic. Having said that, I've directed the fire chief because of the fact that we know we're already seeing an uptick in the number of calls that we have. We've had an open vacancy, and this board saw in my budget presentation that we were going to fill that fourth position that's been open on that particular team. And we were going to do that in July. But I've directed the fire chief to actually post immediately for a temporary full-time position, with the expectation then we will deal with that position in July. But we need that manpower. And I'm not waiting to have it be a reactive situation where we don't have somebody. In addition to that, I want to bring attention to the fact that we've had a great outpouring of support. I know this board takes personal protective equipment very seriously, as do I as the manager of our public safety network here in town. And I want to give a shout out to a number of people who have stepped up to the plate to support our first responders. First of all, we've had individual donations, and they haven't been small. Jeff Morris, who's on our firefighting and emergency services team, brought in more than 100 actual disposable lab coats and gowns that he had been able to acquire. Sean Bowes of Harry Grodsky and Company had donated safety glasses, Tyvek suits, and boot covers. Andy Troiano did a whole number of N95 masks. Corporations, Home Depot has been fantastic with us. Initially, they were all out of Tyvek suits and they didn't have N95 or respirators. They put us as a priority listing for when they had their back order come in, and they have both donated and also been able to meet the orders that we placed. So our hats go off to Home Depot. FlexCon is another company that has provided more face shields for our first responders. And we've had individual residents as well step up. Dorothy Lucier of 244 Sutton Ave has donated cloth face masks. Dana Myhaver has done N95 masks to our first responders. We had an anonymous donation of a large number of N95 masks, and Lisa Fields also had donated some cloth masks. So I just want the public to know we are still receiving donations, particularly of the personal protective equipment, N95 masks, gowns, paper gowns, and also Tyvek suits. Anything that you may have, through your workplace, you may have, especially for some businesses that may no longer be open that did use N95 masks, we would accept them wholeheartedly because we're trying to be prepared for this. I also wanted to let the board know that Sean Dival had expressed to me through a memorandum that because of this pandemic, recently Casella Waste Systems understood that we had gone to a reduced workforce capacity, trying to keep all of our DPW members healthy. And we did have a number of illnesses at the time, so we wanted people to make sure they stayed healthy so they would be able to return during emergency situations here in town. But Casella Waste Management actually took it upon themselves to do an entire roadside cleanup for the town on Route 56, all the way from Leicester Street, from Commons Road to Mill Street to the Oxford-Leicester town line. We plan to send a letter of recognition if the board would like it to come from them. I would most certainly do that on behalf of the board as well. And since we have our police chief on, one of the things I also put in is that he's been very active on addressing all of the orders that have been coming out of the state and working with the Mass Chiefs Association in the courts on how to manage normal law enforcement, which is just not normal right now. But our chief had been very proactive and taken upon creating a new operations order. Chief, I don't know if you want to speak to it, but it had to do with dispatch, the lunchroom, shift change, squad room and locker room and gym. But this is something you had done. If you'd like to speak to that, since you're here, I would be more than happy to defer to you.
Sure. Can you hear me? Is my mic on? It is.
Yes, it's on. Oh, now it's
Go
on.
ahead, Tony. Now it's off. There
Now
you
it's
go.
on. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Sure. What we're trying to do is obviously limit contact of personnel within the police department. So in the common areas, we've limited access. In the dispatch center, for example, no longer will officers be allowed to go in there. In the gym, only one person at a time, cleaning down the equipment before and after they go in. We've made some changes at roll call, the squad room, the locker room, as far as how people pass each other during the normal course of the workday, just to limit that access. So needless to say, the way that business is conducted has changed drastically here. And just to highlight a couple of those areas, the officers are required now when they come in, before they come in and when they leave, to disinfect their workstations and also their cruisers. It's important to know that all of our officers now are properly equipped with the appropriate PPE equipment that's required. They all have masks, eye protection, Tyvek suits, and hand sanitizers in the cruisers ready to go. Another protocol that we put in place is supervisors are now screening calls that come into the dispatch center in order to determine if an actual physical response needs to be made by an officer, or whether that particular incident can be handled by way of a phone call. So in all enforcement efforts and calls for service, decisions are being made to limit contact if possible. And really, summons is the preferred response, if possible, to limit the number of people coming into the police station. But it's important for you guys to know that your officers continue to respond to emergency calls. So we continue to assist the EMS in a limited fashion, whereas in the past, officers would sometimes be the first ones there. They would go into the house first. Now we wait for EMS to get there and don their PPEs to go in, especially on the general sick illness calls, not feeling well, coughs, diarrhea, things like that. So there's no need, an officer really can't assist. So we stay outside. If they need us to go in to assist for whatever reason, then the officer will don the PPE equipment and go in and help in any way that we can. So they wait at the ambulance, and if requested, they go in. Another interesting protocol that's taken place here is in the booking area. We've become sort of a makeshift courtroom here at the PD because, as you know, the courts are no longer conducting hearings or accepting prisoners. So all those issues have changed drastically. So we're actually conducting bail and arraignment hearings here at the PD. We had one the other morning. So we've set up a conference phone in the booking area where the judge will call in, the prosecutor will call in, the defense lawyer will call in, and bail commissioners if need be. And everybody participates remotely, including our court officer or the arresting officer if he's here to give his information as well. So if a person is held and the judge orders a person held, like happened the other morning, we simply contact the House of Correction. They send a van out and they pick that person up directly here. Another thing that we're trying to do is we're in the process of setting up an intercom system. We've had a company come out. What we're looking to do is to limit access to the lobby and have actually a remote buzz-in intercom system with dispatch, where people would state the nature of their business. If it's determined they should come in and speak to an officer or come up to the dispatch window, they'll be let in. We're also setting up a metal drop box out in front as well. So when the front foyer is locked, people can drop off their reports or applications for license to carry applications right there, short of coming in. So that's something I hope to have in place over the next couple of weeks. Also, we've been providing training for the officers also during this event. We've never had to use PPE equipment to the extent that we recently have. So we wanted to make sure we're doing it correctly. So the lieutenant was able to get together with the deputy chief and set up a training session for the officers on shift, how to properly don the equipment so they don't cross-contaminate as they put it on and take it off. That was done last Friday. We have some mandatory training coming up this week on the 3rd, 4th, and 7th. Our medical clinical educator is going to put it on, and it's going to focus on techniques employed to minimize exposure to pandemic illnesses and other infectious diseases, encouraging immunization, and discouraging reporting to work when you're sick, most importantly, to know what those signs are, and encouraging personnel to have family preparedness plans in the event of a pandemic and event what's going on right now. So we're conducting those training sessions in the training room of the PD with limited personnel. As you know, you've all been into the training room. We can accommodate up to 30 people in there. It's set up for 10. So the tables are spread out all the way around the room to respect the social distancing. So that won't be an issue when the instructor comes in to conduct the training. So there's a lot going on. Every day we get notices on new protocols, new procedures that should be followed. It's important to know that at this point, knock on wood, everybody is healthy here. Everybody is reporting to work. All leaves for the offices have been canceled during this particular time, just to make sure that we have, you've heard it a million times, the all hands on deck. We don't know what to anticipate as this evolves over the next couple of weeks, but in the offices obviously are operating under different protocols when they're out there in the street as well to limit their interaction. And that's not easy to do for this group of guys that we have. As you know, we have some really good officers who enjoy getting out there and being proactive. They're not as proactive for obvious reasons. So we are going to all the emergency calls that come in, but we're trying to limit the contact. So if any of you, any of the board members have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer anything specific that you might have.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Tony, I've not heard specific to Oxford, but I've heard somewhat kind of across the board that domestics are up as a result of this. And, I just wanted to say, I want to, continue to encourage you guys to be careful, especially in those types of messy situations. But also, other than on the domestic front, I mean, is there anything you feel you need from us as of now?
As of right now, no. It's good to hear that we may be, recovering some expenses, some undue expenses that we've had here, these training expenses that are coming up, and the extra PPE equipment and, the intercom system that I'm looking to set up at the PD, but all that's in motion. So hopefully we can recover those expenses at some point in time. But no, I thank you for asking. And the manager's been very responsive to any needs that we've had here. So as our fire chief has been really good. I speak to him quite often as these situations evolve. So thank you very much on that. And as far as the call volume goes, and you mentioned domestics, and yes, those are the issues that we expect to tick up. We have seen a few. It hasn't really, I can't say that it's been out of control as of yet, but now we're talking another month with people being in the house. So I fully expect that to increase. But with that said, it's good to have all the officers in place responding 2-3 officers at a time to those particular situations. And of course, the general call volume has gone down because, as you have seen, there are less people traveling. We've had less accidents reported as a result of that, not as many people on the road. Also, overall, people have seemed to be pretty good. and respecting this epidemic that we're currently going through. And as the manager referred to earlier, we're always getting contact from the general public looking to offer any assistance to the first responders, specifically the police officers out there in the street. Everybody knows the situation that we're in as first responders, and they want to do anything they can to help, like you had mentioned, Selectman LeBlanc. So thank you very much.
Is that Cheryl? Great. All right.
I have one question.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Yes.
For this question's for both the police chief and the fire chief. As things are getting ready to ramp up and our surge is supposedly getting ready to come, just curious if you guys are doing any pre-screening of your employees before they come to work, such as the shift commander, the officer in charge, just asking some of the simple questions. I know how first responders can be and feeling like they're letting down the team by calling out sick or whatnot, but just curious if you guys are doing pre-screenings of your own guys and gals.
I'll answer on from the PD side of things. This is a message that we continually put out there every day with the command staff, and the officers understand that as well. The last thing they want to do is come in and get another officer sick and another officer sick, and then before you know it, we're down 3-4 guys. So the command staff is on alert for that when they come in. Do they specifically ask the officers every day that question? I would say no, not a bad idea. But again, we're trying to limit roll call contacts with officers when they come in. Basically, one sergeant's passed along to another sergeant from the previous shift. So the officers really at the end of their shift, they're leaving quickly. They're not hanging around the building. They're out of here, and the next guys are up. But we are on the alert for that, Selectman Daniels, for sure. We're vigilant when it comes to that. We're watching it every day.
Good evening. What we're doing in the fire department is, of course, all the staff are aware of making sure they're reporting anything, any symptoms or anything. We have ordered 6 temporal type thermometers. We ordered them several weeks ago. They still are on back order. We are going to check the status first thing tomorrow. With the concept of check them in the morning when they first come on duty, and then check them again at probably the mid part of the shift at 7 o'clock to make sure and check and see if whether anybody's running a fever or not. Right now, it's all on the honor system. I have every bit of confidence and faith in the staff. They're taking this seriously. I've been very proud of them in terms of how they've been handling it. They're true professionals. So anybody who has been suspected of anything, that led to a couple of them staying home about a week and a half ago. Tests are still limited right now. The testing center in Shrewsbury is only doing screenings for people who show at least one of the particular symptoms. Other than that, they will not schedule anybody any longer. I went around to some of the stores today because of the thermometer issue, just trying to find some. I went to 4 different stores, and it's just the same everywhere. So we're hopeful that we'll get those thermometers in. And Captain Sellers and Deputy Chief Belanger are both exploring other options to see if we can obtain them somewhere else, maybe borrow them from the school department, from the nurse's office, or something to that effect. We, as the manager pointed out, part of our social distancing, as well as being able to respond more rapidly in the north end of town, is the reason that we opened up Station 2. So the way it's staffed up there is we have the 2 people staffing either an engine or an ambulance as needed. And then Captain Sellers, we temporarily located his office up there. So during the day, during the week, there are 3 personnel up there, and then the deputy and I, along with the other 2 staff at the main station, just to kind of keep that social distancing and not cross-contaminate stations in the event somebody was to be exposed. Today, we made a decision to put the fire department gymnasium off limits because we were not confident that we could ensure the cleanliness, and on recommendation of the health agent, we decided to take the same route as commercial gyms and say, we'll put that off limits for right now, and all the other limitations. So that I think covers the extent to what we're doing in terms of pre-screening.
Thank you, both chiefs. I wanted to say, I was hoping the both of you would be around tonight, because I think I could probably say this on behalf of the entire board. I know personally, I want you to just send a message back to your troops, how appreciative we are of what you people are dealing with. It's an awful time in this world, and it's got to be, as Selectman Daniels probably knows also, because he's in that field, and Selectman Triano's husband and Selectman LeBlanc's significant other. They're all involved in this, and it's an awful, awful time. I just send a message that we're thinking of them, ask them to please be as careful as they possibly can. Thank you for your service. Thank you guys for what the two of you are doing. Stepping up with our town manager, implementing some of the regulations you've done. It's as a taxpayer, I'm only hearing good things about what the two departments are doing. I'm not hearing any negativity personally. I don't know about the rest of the board. So just the best you can, please be careful. And again, thank you. Can't say it enough. You know, I can't imagine those guys pulling over somebody, how you're dealing with a situation like that, you know, going into a domestic dispute, having to go into homes like the EMTs have to do. It's just a nightmare. So I wanted to say that tonight before we went on any further. So thank you for putting up with my mumbling.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yes,
Turn
thank
it back.
you very much.
Turn it back over to our town manager, I guess, unless somebody else has something.
I still have a few items on the update, just so that you know. I wanted to make sure that the board also could get some feedback. We did establish previous week the COVID-19 questions email, and between the questions that had come in along with the COVID question direct email, we have fielded approximately 40 separate types of both inquiries, concerns, issues. That has also led our investigatory branches to look at compliance issues with essential and non-essential businesses. And so our Board of Health agent is working extremely hard, which leads me to the next item to let you know that for every compliance question or issue, Tom Purcell, our Board of Health agent, has been right out there in real time. He has been communicating with both Chief Sad and Chief McDonald and our public health nurse on a regular basis, as he has also with myself. I will tell you that we did have concerns about our major employer after the essential order workplace had come from the last time we were together on March 24th. Both our Board of Health agent, Tom Purcell, and also Chief McDonald actually went to IPG, which is our largest employer in town, to do an actual on-site. It is considered an essential provider of services by the Commonwealth for a variety of different reasons, including developing technology for medical equipment as well as military equipment. But there was an on-site inspection report that you can see in your packets that was prepared by our Board of Health agent and Chief McDonald. Just to let you and the public know, this is a very large facility. I had been in touch with the Vice President the day before our last meeting and consecutively the day after. And this on-site inspection took place last Friday. Building security is their number one priority as a large employer with many patented items and productions. Visitors are directed through one port of entry into the building, where they are met with and have to complete a health and security questionnaire to sign into work. The production employees have to actually badge in and out. So we don't have anybody going into that building unless they are deemed an essential employee. All non-essential employees that were not on production areas are actually either been furloughed, some of them, and or they are working remotely. From what I can gather from the report, that all the employees in the production areas of the facility already wear masks, gowns, and PPE as a rule to control contamination based on the work that they do. They have been very diligent now for adhering to the social distancing and social density orders through the Commonwealth, and including their break areas where they have been able to demonstrate that they're actually spacing employees out. So needless to say that the on-site inspection went well, and it's just for the public's edification as well to understand that some of these in-depth on-site inspections with our Board of Health agent are being taken very seriously, along with our Director of EMS. Having said that, I also wanted to update the board that our ACO has also undertaken a number of steps because we are anticipating there may be more people who do become ill in our community who also may be pet owners. In your packets, my office helped prepare with our ACO a number of steps that we just recently today put up on our website and on Facebook. We really want people to not just look out for their families, but also be prepared in the event for some reason they cannot take care of their pet. We're asking people to identify 2 to 3 friends in their community who might be able to take care of their pet should they have to go to the hospital, or should they need to leave their home quite abruptly. We're asking them to post those contacts, put them in a plastic bag, maybe with also the rabies information, maybe a picture of their pet, and post it in a prominent place. We're asking people if you can tape it to the back of your door. It will allow for our first responder line, which is also our animal control officer, to be looking for things like that. We're asking people to make sure they have enough supplies for their pets in the case that they have to be transitioned someplace else. We have had a number of boarding kennels reach out to our ACO and wanted to just let the public know, if you have used Precious Furs Pet Resort or Lucky Paw Lodge or Starwood Pet Resort or Barkwood Inn, if you call them in advance and say, if something should happen, I've boarded my pet there before, I'd like to in advance notify you that this is where I would like my pet to go. So we're asking people to make those plans in advance, make sure your pet does have identification, and most importantly, if your pet is on different medications, no differently if it was a family member, make sure you prepare that list and the dosages, and make sure you have a supply of them, and also list that in with the other items for identification. This is very important for people to think of now because we still have not gotten to a surge capacity issue in town. So our furry friends will be looking to you to help plan in your families. We know they're very important to every family. The next item is just to let this board know there are some things we're going to take up in the normal agenda after I'm almost finished through this. But the next meeting, I do want to alert the board that it is my intention to talk about 2 major things, and that is the issue of town meeting and also the issue of town elections. Since the governor now has extended this order to go through May 4th, as you know, our normal May town meeting was planned for May 6th. There are a lot of new pieces of legislation to provide municipal relief that have just come out within the last day or 2. And so we'll bring that up at our next meeting, and we'll have a full vetting and discussion of that. Prior to that, this week, I have already asked the chairman of the Board of Selectmen and our finance chair, along with the finance team, to do a remote meeting to really get into depth about our financials, where we are now doing comparisons to where the town has been in previous times, hard times. I will tell you that even today, the lottery has seen a significant drop in actual sales in the Commonwealth. And for anybody who understands that we get our state aid through lottery funding, it's going to be an important thing for us to continue to watch our finances, even if it's not an immediate thing. Obviously, we may need to revisit some of that later on. We will do that, obviously, before we talk about our upcoming town meeting, and that is scheduled for this Thursday, April 2nd. The only other two things is Aquarian had asked me to also let the townspeople know that they have also implemented new operating procedures. They are there to do emergency repairs. Essential work on their infrastructure will continue, especially with regards to main replacements, pump station and treatment plant upgrades. But the non-essential work in which people go into homes for non-critical tasks, that has been postponed or curtailed until further notice. But they thought that was important, and I do too, to let the board know. And the final thing is to let you know that our auditor, Roselli Clark and Associates, has also sent a memorandum to the board on a number of issues that they think are important for the board to consider going forward. They're taking some new sort of operational stances in trying to educate the communities about where they see potential delays in perhaps their fall auditing reviews and the like. So I wanted to make sure the board was informed of that. Having said that, again, I do want to impress upon the town, we're doing everything we can to protect you, to make sure we get ahead if we can. At any point in time of this virus, we take it very seriously, and we want you to continue to ask the questions and to find, and hopefully we can help and assist you in finding answers. I know this board cares deeply about the townspeople, and our public safety officials are doing everything they possibly can, and together we will be able to address this in the best possible way we can. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, that would conclude the COVID-19 update response on behalf of the town, and we would be going to your next agenda item for 7:15 thereabouts.
A little late, but we're going.
Well, it's pretty tough. I get to find the things that we can actually squeeze in with so many things that are happening.
Yeah. Only kidding, Jen. You're doing
I
it.
know you are.
Yes, the next item is our governor's proposal legislation for tax bills. Do you,
Yes.
or would you want me to?
No, I wanted to let the board know that the governor has put forward a potential piece of legislation, and a matter of fact, it's moved like lightning between the House and the Senate, and it had actually been engrossed in both the House and Senate. It went on to the bills on third reading. I expected it actually to be on the governor's desk last night, as some of the legislators had. There was a final amendment that I looked at around 5, 6 o'clock tonight, that it seems that the House Ways and Means was able to successfully add. We anticipate the governor is going to sign this tomorrow. There's a number of provisions that are in this bill to provide municipal relief because we have statutory compliance issues with the law, the way it was constructed prior to having to deal with a pandemic. So tonight I'm asking the board to take a vote in, which is a local option that's contained within this bill, that would allow the board to do several things. First of all, we know that our tax rate, as you can see in the packet, the state Department of Revenue did certify our tax rate at $16.66. That classification hearing was done last week, and in that time frame, the state actually finally made that approval. We are getting ready to send out our tax bills. The legislation allows for our town, which normally would have an April 1st deadline, to allow the town to have at least another month. And we're looking at a May 4th timeframe for tax payments. This is real estate taxes I'm speaking of, for that to be due. So we're giving the townspeople, through the vote of the board, an extra month, and it's recommended through both myself, our finance director, and our collector treasurer. And the other thing that we would need your approval for tonight is there is another piece of this legislation that allows this town to waive all interest and penalties, not only through May 4th, but all the way to June 1st. And so I know that there are many families who may have just lost their job or are on unemployment right now. There are also a lot of people who have mortgages and mortgage tax payments in escrow. We're not talking about those where the money has been put aside. We're talking about some of the townspeople who may need a little bit more time, waiting for either federal assistance or waiting for their unemployment to kick in to be able to meet the tax deadlines that have typically been there. So we want to extend that to June 1st without interest and penalties. This is something that if the board so chooses to vote, it would be a local option, and it would waive the interest and penalties on this semi-annual real estate tax bill through June 1st. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer it. What we're hoping to do is in your packet, you will also see a draft of an actual notice that will get inserted with the tax bill that I've put together with our collector treasurer. And that it does say that the Board of Selectmen had voted to approve in advance the pending municipal relief proposal, which will allow the town to actually give this relief to the taxpayers. So there's two things. They get an extra month anyway, and if they need even more, they will have the interest and penalties that normally would have been due on May 4th. That will be waived until June 1st. So I would be looking for a vote of the board to approve that.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve this waiver.
I make that motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, just to be clear, what we're doing is adopting the local option of waiving interest and penalties on this year's semi-annual real estate tax bills through June 1st, 2020, subject to the pending legislation. So any questions? I'll call for a vote.
Yes.
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 John,
John said yes. All right, your mic's off, and I'll say yes. It's 5 in the affirmative. It passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jen, for that.
Thank you to the board. It's very timely of you, and I honestly thought it would already be signed, but I expect it will be signed in the morning. So I thank you for making that timely vote. The next item we have on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
It is for our a civil service lateral transfer request. So I believe our chief is up for that.
Yes, Madam Manager and members of the board, we have a unique opportunity here to pick up a highly qualified lateral transfer to fill this current open position within the department. We all know how much time it takes to quickly hire somebody. I don't know if you're currently in possession of the correspondence that I sent to the manager and the chairman dated 28 February. I hope the board has that in hand, and it kind of gives a brief overview of what we're looking to accomplish. And without rehashing everything, it's that if we were to make a move right now to try to hire through the list, we're probably looking at March, February of 2021 before we actually handed a guy the key to go out and work. Obviously, that time frame is unacceptable. We currently don't have anybody in queue for part-time personnel that would be available to quickly step up. And then, of course, the question mark of police academies right now in light of the current pandemic. I mean, they're trying to get the guys through the current one. I don't know if there'll be any future ones depending on what happens. So with that said, should you approve tonight to go for a lateral transfer, I would reach out to the town of Millbury, which I did already, and that's where this letter would come from. The officer's name is Roy Aquafesca. He was originally ours. I'm sure you remember Roy. He was hired full-time by us in 2013, and we actually sponsored him for the academy. He went through, and he left us in early 2017. Now he wants to come home. He's a quality officer. I hated to see him go at the time. Also, he is the type of officer who I would characterize as an extreme professional, takes pride in his job. He's always looking to improve himself, and that's exactly what he did when he went to Millbury. He took advantage of a lot of training over there. Became a field training officer, a drug recognition expert, which he went to Arizona to get the training for that. He's a certified instructor in field sobriety testing. He's a CPR, first responder instructor, and EMT basic. So he has a lot to offer. So should the board take a vote this evening to allow this to happen, there is no, I would work with the chief of Millbury to try to coordinate an exact time when he would be able to come over. And as of right now, I can not see this happening too quickly because of the current pandemic and what's going on. But I think at some point in time, within the near future, maybe a month or so down the road, we may be in a situation to actually make this happen.
Thank you, Chief. Board members, any comments, questions? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the requests for a civil service lateral transfer in order to retain Patrolman Roy Aquafesca from Millbury and place him as a full-time officer for the Oxford Police Department. And this will happen at a mutually agreed time between the Oxford Millbury Police Chiefs.
I make that motion.
I second that motion.
All right, any more comments? Then I'll call for a vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll vote yes. 5 in the affirmative. We will be glad to welcome Roy back to our ranks. Thank you, Chief.
I would like to thank you all for that vote. It's much appreciated. That gets us back to our full complement that we're budgeted for at 22 full-time officers. So once again, thank you very much.
Again, thank you all for what you guys do. So thank you very much. All right, next item on our agenda is our town manager's report. Town manager, you're up again.
I am, and it's not too long of a report. The first item is minutes, the requesting of the board to vote to approve the minutes of your meeting on March 12th. It was a civil service workshop. Selectman LeBlanc and Selectman Daniels were absent.
I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I make that motion.
Second.
All right, John seconds. Very good. I have a motion and a second. Call for a vote.
Abstain.
Sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Abstain.
Same. John?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That's 3 yeses, 2 abstentions. Those minutes are approved. All right, go ahead, Town Manager.
Terrific. There is another set of minutes for the open meeting minutes of March 12th. Selectman LeBlanc and Selectman Daniels were absent at that particular regular open session.
I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I make that motion.
Second.
Moved in second. Call for a vote.
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Say that again, Mike.
I'm abstaining.
Thank you. John?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'll vote yes. That's 3 in affirmative, 2 abstentions. Motion carries. Thank you.
The next set of minutes that were before the board to consider approving tonight were executive session minutes of March 12th. I've conferred with the chairman of the board. The administrative assistant had noted a couple of errors. And so I've asked the board chairman to table that. My recommendation is we'll take it up at a subsequent meeting because they need to be corrected. But the next and the last minutes to be approved relative to the emergency session of March 16th, all members were in attendance at that emergency session.
I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I make that motion.
I second that motion.
Move the second. Comments? All right, I'll call for a vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll vote yes. 5 in the affirmative. Those minutes are approved. Thank you, Town Manager.
Oh, I thank you. There's an awful lot to keep up with, and we want to make sure we stay ahead and don't fall behind with our meeting transparency as well. The next item has to do with the right of first refusal of the board is in receipt of a request from Sean Trainer and Sharon Furmanek. They're personal representatives of the state of Elizabeth Trainer. Before you, they're requesting to have the town waive its first rights of refusal on a parcel of land they own, which is identified as map 28, parcel A 23.02, which is also commonly referred to as 25 Lovett Road. The board has received comments from the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board who advised the town should waive its first right of refusal. I just want to make sure the board, to jog their memory, this was actually not taken up by the board previously because there had been a purchase and sale agreement included on a residential property as well as the chapter land. And according to statute, there would have needed to be two separate purchase and sale agreements presented for the land and not one that was presented. We now are informed that the sellers intend to remove all of the land from chapter status, and it's probably anticipated that once they do that, they believe, we believe that it will probably result in selling off portions of the land. The board has the right to actually entertain waiving its first rights of refusal. Obviously, if you do that, there is one thing that it could be positive to the town, aside from being able to grant the request to an individual residents that are seeking relief in terms of a waiver. But there would be rollback interest and calculations on that property that goes back 5 years, and that would be important for the community if we were to waive our first right of refusal and they go forward with their plans. So in this time period, we were looking at revenues. I think it is a consideration for the board, and I just wanted to highlight that.
Great. Board members, any comments? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the town's right of first refusal on this parcel of land.
I'm going to abstain from this. Megan, can you make the motion?
Absolutely. I would make a motion to waive the town's right of first refusal concerning the parcel identified as map 28, parcel A23.02.
I second that motion.
That's been second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any comments? I'll call for a vote. Abstain,
Yes.
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 and I'll vote yes. That's 4 in the affirmative, 1 abstention. Then we will waive that right. Thank you, Town Manager.
Thank you. The next item is the draft of the annual town warrant. Today was the last day to have articles, potential warrant articles submitted. We will be going over this in more depth at the upcoming meeting, but I just wanted to give the board a chance to look at the scope of articles. I'm just going to highlight the major categories, and we will go more in depth in the future. But the major categories are normal, regular financial transacting articles that we see in our annual warrant every year. That may be transferring funds from one available fund to another. It's actually putting money into everything from our compensated absence fund, our stabilization accounts, our revolving funds, anything to do with Chapter 90, and also our capital outlay program. What is significant in terms of articles that typically would not be here as a regular financial article are the 3 articles related to PEG access funding that the Department of Revenue had asked us to establish. One, a special revenue fund, because they forced us to actually close the way that we were doing it before. 2 would be to transfer money that we swept into the general fund into that new fund that would be established per the will of the townspeople. And the 3rd article would be to grant authorization to appropriate from that fund as funding builds up. So those are those PEG access cable articles we said would be on the docket. The other article that is significant has to do with a potential debt exclusion article that has been presented to you with regards to our roads and making improvements of our roads in a staggered over 15-year period. That is there as well. The other issue that is different that will be considered is to actually establish a revolving fund for our Board of Health. Right now it's commingled. It really should be separated, particularly at times like this, where you want to be able to look at providing support directly coming in from fees and fines and inspections. So that will be a new revolving account we're going to be asking for the townspeople to set up. And the final major article that the Planning Board has worked very hard on is the large-scale ground-mounted solar moratorium and now solar bylaw. So this has been being worked on, and even though I said we're going to address the issue of when to have town meeting in an upcoming board meeting, I do make the recommendation, and I still stand by that we should proceed, even if we do it remotely. I'm asking the Finance Committee to hold its capital planning hearing, which is per our charter, and that is scheduled. And I'm also asking the Planning Board to hold its hearing on this solar mounted bylaw. So those 2 will go forward in the month of April, so we can say we had those. Don't put those off because they can be done just like we're having our meetings here, and they can be done with public input. And then we will at least have finished that piece of the business, and then we can talk about further what that means in terms of when all of that information comes together and we hold our town meeting. I don't know if you have any questions now, but again, this is a draft, and I just wanted to, as soon as we could feasibly put it together. I'm amazed that we are able to do that with everything else going on. But mind you, we'll have more details for each one of those articles. But I'm all ears if you have a question.
Board members, any questions?
Terrific. I appreciate that. And then the final thing, and I see the chief has been patiently waiting. I was going to report to the board that on March 27th, 2020, police officer Ryan Kasich was presented a certificate of commendation by our chief, Anthony Sad, for his role in the recovery of an illegal possessed firearm. Chief, I'm going to defer this to you because you can give some details to the board, but these are those significant things that happen in our town that really shows what our law enforcement and first responders encounter on a regular basis. And I appreciate if you could provide the details to the board.
Sure. In this particular incident, Officer Kasich backed up a state police officer who had a car stopped on Sutton Avenue. So while he was backing up the state trooper, Officer Kasich was able to observe the interior of the vehicle, and he noticed a handgun that was secreted away in the back of the vehicle that was stopped. He immediately alerted the trooper, who placed the person into custody, and the handgun was retrieved without incident. It was illegally possessed. The person was charged with not only the handgun offense, but there were several drugs also located in the vehicle. So It was a situation because of his observations, they acted quickly and secured this individual before he had an opportunity, should that have been in his mind, to go for the firearm that was in the vehicle. So all's well that ends well. So it was a great job by Officer Kasich, and we gave him that commendation a few days ago. Appreciate his hard work. Great officer, one of our newer guys, one of the guys who really is really professional in what he does, likes to be proactive out there. So well deserved on his part.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Just another example of the quality personnel we have in this town. We're so blessed. And again, it starts at the top, buddy.
Well, thank you. And then those are situations really where, you know, they can develop into something pretty outrageous in a moment's notice. So these are things that the officers run into every single day. And I feel it's important to recognize officers when they do a great job. It goes a long way in increasing morale and making those presentations in front of the other officers.
Well, on behalf of the board, I'm sure we all really appreciate it and thank him greatly, as we do all of you. Thank you.
Yes.
Town manager, all set?
Yes, I just want to let the board know that I didn't have it right in front of me, but the public hearing for the capital program is scheduled for April 8th at 6 p.m. And there are remote instructions for people, and we will continue to advertise that in addition to where it's already advertised. And the planning board hearing on the warrant article is scheduled for April 13th at 7 p.m. And that concludes my manager's report.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We have Selectmen's requests. We'll start with our one and only Selectman LeBlanc.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope that this finds everyone well. I do have a question for the town manager, but I do have a question for, or a comment rather, for the police chief and the fire chief, if I could. You know, again, you know, I don't pretend by any stretch of the imagination to be a first responder. I'm very comfortable behind my desk. However, you know, I will say I would highly encourage them to think about doing some sort of health check like Selectman Daniels talked about before coming into shift. I know that, you know, I only know by association that it's being done in the larger departments. And my concern with this pandemic is, you know, we don't have a big bench to go to, right? So, you know, catching it early, you know, is, and being down a man or a woman is probably better than being down 3 or 4. And the other thing that I would encourage them is that I know we're all practicing social distancing, but if, you know, the police and the fire department, if they kind of mingle in a social setting, I did hear today that that due to a social setting, there's a number of firefighters in quarantine right now. I'm sure those social settings are kind of diminishing as we go through this pandemic, but I would be in support of that. Just to, like I said, we don't have a big bench, for lack of a better term, and we want to just try to keep everyone healthy. And then my question for the town manager, Jen, if you don't mind, can you, just for my understanding, can you kind of explain how the town hall is functioning right now with everyone at home? Meaning, you know, if I needed you know, if someone needed something from the town clerk, I'm assuming they're still able to ask it, but there's just a delay in getting it out, or is it just we're kind of stopped? I mean, I don't know one way or another. So can you just kind of educate me a little bit?
Sure. I mean, we were one of the last town halls to actually close officially to the public because I wanted to give people that time period.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're closed officially to the public, we do have employees that have to come in because they need to actually access a file or they have to do something in person. And so we do have people who are in this building, but they're working on 3-week cycles. In other words, it's not like there's only one person truly in a department, and if they have to come in and they can't work remotely from home, then they're allowed to come in. We're sanitizing the building still. The order from me is twice a day. And also between those 3-week periods, if someone is in, say the clerk's office has to come in, retrieve a birth certificate or issue a
Okay.
okay. We had someone request that through the COVID-19 question email. And so what they do is they take that information by phone, they actually produce it, and then they schedule a time period for the person to come and pick it up. So yes, we do have people who are working remotely from home. Even our Board of Health admin, had started to work remotely from home, but had to come in today to actually do work, that was required in updating the investigatory aspects of the position. And so I want to encourage people that we have posted on the doors and on our website. People can contact their departments directly. Their phone systems go directly and their messages go directly to their emails. And there they get that message. And if somebody isn't in the office or they're on another line, no different than if they were in the office regularly. And then from there, they can either send it by email directly to the department, send it by email to COVID-19 and we'll get it to the department, or actually physically call the department and they will execute whatever business they have to. We are in a process right now of, we have, our Dropbox in the front, but we recognize that I want to minimize any kind of even hand-to-hand contact with residents. And so we're actually creating a locked file cabinet, and people during the daytime will be able to come pick up whatever it is that we have done on behalf of the residents. If it's a building permit that, say they don't have a printer and they can't print it out, we can do that and leave it, but they would have to come retrieve it during a specific time period. And that gets delineated over the phone. So the services are there. They are there. And I definitely know that because we're answering all these emails and making sure that people get whatever assistance that they need.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And thank you to the staff for being so accommodating in these different times. My last question, is DPW working or not working? Are they on, I just, because, sometimes DPW is out in the field, right? So are they in the field? Are they not? How are we managing? Of course, there's no snow, thank goodness. So how are we managing that?
So they are on a reduced staff.
Okay.
It is a reduced staff that's called work by the department heads, the operations manager, and the DPW director. So our facilities director, all three of them. They are called in for any kind of emergent situation. I don't care if it's a large pothole that gets opened up, a tree goes down, there's debris in a road that needs to be cleaned up. They know they are to remain at home until they're called in for whatever specific task. We had a number of people who were ill, with a variety of different ailments. We became concerned, no differently than for our other public safety branches. And so the decision was made that we need to keep them healthy as long as possible. There are actual tasks. You might have seen our, parks and cemetery supervisor out today working on the pots that we had in town. There are isolative types of roles that we can have. But again, that also comes with reminding them that they have to wipe down all the hand tools that they use. They have to, whatever vehicle they're getting into has to be completely sanitized. And so we're really trying to reduce that and keep our people as healthy as possible. But they most certainly are there for the essential tasks and tasks that we know can be done that affords not only the social distancing factor, but also mitigates substantially any exposure in terms of density and proximity that could happen through work. Because let's face it, if someone's going up in a bucket, OSHA standards are you got to have somebody else watching them. And, and so then you have now 3 people and you have to make sure that everybody is adhering to that. DPW facilities itself does not lend itself well to being able to create separate work areas at all. You have very compact, small, 10 by 10 lunchroom where they get all their orders. That wasn't working out. We were going to one man, one truck. Again, there was concern among the staff as well. We do have some people, who may have underlying conditions that don't prohibit them from working, but could place them at greater risk for contracting the virus in terms of the severity of a case if they were to get it. So we're mindful of all that. We're doing the best we can, but I will tell you that they are well aware that they can be called at any time and that they may be called to do certain specific tasks that allow them to do it when they're healthy by themselves in adhering to the governor's guidelines.
Thank you very much. That helps. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could for a moment.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you, Cheryl, by the way. And who was that?
I think it was the chief.
Sid?
Yes, if I could, Mr. Chairman, through you to Selectwoman LeBlanc. Did you say you heard that we had people quarantined because of a social event?
No, not your department. It was somewhere else.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Cheryl. Selectman Triano.
Good evening. I just have a couple things. I wanted to first and foremost just offer my congratulations to Officer Kasich for a job well done. I was happy to see that he was still able to be recognized despite social distancing. I was disappointed that we couldn't be there because as a board, we usually like to attend those events. So Chief Sad, if you could just please pass along the congratulations from the board as well, because if I could have been there, I would have been there to say congratulations myself. On the heels of that, I just want to kind of reiterate what I said last week. A huge heartfelt thank you to Chief McDonald, Chief Sad, and all of our first responders for the amazing efforts that you're putting forth right now. I feel like the general public doesn't truly understand what you're faced with and what you're doing. And I just really want to give that heartfelt thanks for continuing to put yourselves out there and doing the jobs that you're doing. And please let your departments know how appreciative we are. That being said, I also want to say thank you to our town manager, who is also staying on top of it and working tirelessly to make sure that we are informed as much as possible and taking care of the town to the best of her ability as well. And then just my plea to our community, let's stay home. I still see a lot of people out when I need to go out to get my essential things for my family. If we can stay home and really try to eliminate social interactions, it will hopefully shorten the amount of times that we need to continue having the social distancing extended. Instead of saying that you're stuck at home, look at it as being safe at home. You know, it can get crazy being stuck inside the four walls of your house, but go outside, get some fresh air. Hopefully we'll get some warmer weather, but I really am pleading with people to please stay home, and if not for yourself, but for other people, for our community, we really need to pull together and do this. And that being said, that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Selectman Triano. Selectman Daniels.
Good evening, everybody. I just had a quick couple questions in regards to the schools and the meals that they're putting together. Just a little concerned about the students whose parents may rely on public transportation and the reduced public transportation that there is. Just making sure that somebody's reaching out to them, and I don't know if we need to coordinate getting meals delivered to a doorstep or something, making sure that that's happening. Also, in regards to that, I don't know if maybe the food shelf, they're doing a great job with the curbside pickup, but in that same means, I don't know if it would be possible to do pop-up locations where they pack, I don't know, 10, 20 bags worth of food into a van and go park somewhere, and then somebody can meet them there to pick up food if they have limited transportation. Just coming up with different ideas to try and help to the best of our ability with people who have limited means. But on that note, kudos to schools for putting together all those meals and making sure the kids are still getting their meals. I know that was a big concern with the communities when this first all started coming around. Shout out to the library for them doing all of their the technology-based outreach to the public, doing their book readings and stuff like that. Wanted to thank the local, both the people and the businesses that have been donating the PPE to our first responders. That's huge, huge thank you for that. There was quite the shortage across the state in regards to PPE. There still is a huge shortage in hospitals. First responders, I know we're having issues purchasing equipment and stuff, but it's the businesses that are donating the equipment that are making it easier for us to make sure that the first responders have the equipment that they need to stay safe and continue responding on these calls. So then, thank you to all the first responders for what they keep doing, town manager and the DPW and everybody who's considered essential that's keeping the wheels turning. And then one last thing in regards for the selectmen, if there's any paperwork that we need to have signed, are you guys going to be reaching out to us to come in at certain times to the town hall to sign any paperwork?
I would say that we would set up electronic signatures with each one of you, in which case, if we send the document, each one of you can actually pick up and place your signature, which would also be sufficient. So we'll manage that piece of it rather than making each person come out. So that's another piece of trying to limit. I need to make sure you all stay very, very healthy. You're very important as the central role of government here in the community. So that would be my intention. So just like we were, putting out how to do this remote technology, that would be another thing in terms of electronic authorization that we would be looking to be able to do. And as long as we can do that with anything that would normally require in person, we'll do that. Good question.
Thank you. That's all I had.
All set. Thanks, Mike. Selectman Sad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to take the opportunity to once again extend my appreciation for those who have volunteered to give items to our emergency personnel. I mean, I don't think we can thank them enough. I would ask that the board send a letter, individual, to each one of those donors to show our appreciation. And I would like to have that signed by this Board of Selectmen. Each and every one of us sign it, because I think each and every one of us is appreciative of this kind of community involvement that could help save lives. And I think the public has the right to know how we feel with donations like that. And hopefully we will continue to get additional donations that will help our emergency personnel. One of the comments that I have is in regards to the thermometers. I've been looking for a thermometer for my family for over 4 weeks in every drugstore, every department store that I've been to is totally out. When I ask when they're going to get them, they don't know. I'm just concerned about our ambulance and our first responders when they get to a certain location and it may be suspect of this virus. I would imagine the first thing you want to do is to test the temperature of the individual. Same thing with people coming to work. Now, I've noticed, I've seen it on TV, and maybe the fire chief can explain more what this is all about. But I see that in the hospitals, they have a handheld thermometer. They just point on your forehead and it takes the temperature. And I'm assuming that that can be used over and over again. Why can't something like that be a permanent part of our ambulance services? Could you answer that, Chief?
Yes, Mr. Sud. Well, those are the kind of thermometers that we have ordered. It's my understanding, so we've ordered 6 of them for that reason. Oddly enough, a thermometer is not a required piece of equipment on an ambulance, but it's something that in the previous job that I worked, we did it simply because it helps you get a good baseline whether or not somebody has an infection or whatnot. So we typically take the patient's word for it, and a lot of time you can tell they're running a fever by just by the touch of their skin and everything. But those are the types of items we're trying to procure. We ordered them about 2.5 weeks ago, and just awaiting a status for when we're going to get them. But as you said, the supply stream doesn't seem to be moving at the rate that we really need it to be moving on.
Thank you, Chief. And the other question I have for you, Chief, is you mentioned that you're going to be staffing the North Fire Station. Now, will that not only include a manned fire engine, but also an ambulance? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So we have 2 people. Each shift has 4 personnel assigned to it, with the exception of 1, which we've got now the go ahead to fill temporarily. So we have 2 at the main station. We use 2 at the North Station, and we moved one of the ambulances up there. So the way we're working it is if there's a call that is a fire call, then if it's in the south end, the North Station will come down in the tanker. The tanker only holds 3 people in the front seat anyway, and carries enough water to back them up. If there's something in the north end, they'll go out the door. If it's fire related, they'll go out the door in the tanker. Then the crew from Station 1 will join them on scene. So we'll have 4 people on scene. Plus, we have now moved people who live in the north side of the town. Their gear is at the North Station. So the call members and the off-duty people can go to the North Station and quickly back up those crews there. If it's an ambulance call, then the crew up north is going to take that call, and then the crew down south end will take the preponderance of the other calls. So the majority of our call volume does happen down in the south end, so that's going to have the most calls. We've also adopted protocols so that if we have let's say a smoke detector going off in the north end of town, the crew in the North Station will go out in the fire apparatus, and the people in the South Station will start to head that direction in an ambulance, so that we still have an ambulance that can get somewhere in town relatively quickly for what we would call an investigative type mode of operation.
Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate those comments. And I think it's long overdue as far as manning that station in the north end. That is an area that, not only because of the pandemic, the need is there, we're looking into the future. As you know, the planning board is looking at projects in the north end of town that is going to increase the population in the north end. We're talking the possibility over 300 housing units off of Route 20. So eventually we're going to have to man it anyway. So this would be a good test on at least getting that started, so that we can have a permanent presence in that end of town, which I think is needed tremendously. I'd also like to take this opportunity to, not to be repetitive, but to express my appreciation to all those people who are on the front lines. I can't say enough. We see it when we watch the news. We see how stressed these people are: doctors, nurses, EMT, police. List goes on of first responders who are there when we need it. They put our lives sometimes ahead of their own. And I think that people have to be appreciative of what they're doing. And I'll tell you, I appreciate it, and I'm sure this board appreciates it as well. Keep up the good work. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, John. Well, I've previously, like I said, already said thank you to the chiefs and the personnel out there, for my fellow board members whose family members are stressed to the limit. It's a scary time, as we all know. By all indication, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I know since I've been out of the hospital, I haven't left this house pretty much. So if anybody's stir crazy, you're looking at one guy. I haven't done anything. And for me to be hanging around. So my best wishes to everyone, all my board members, chiefs, again, all our personnel, our employees, the residents, like Selectman Triano said, stay home, you know? Is that cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts or wherever that important every morning rather than having one at home? You never know what you're going to touch and how you're going to get this disease. So my only comment ending this is please all just try to be safe and God bless. And that's all I have. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
I second that motion.
All right, I'll call for a vote.
Yes.
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 And I'll vote yes. And we are adjourned. Thank you all. Nice to see your wonderful faces. See you in a little while. Take care.
Have a good night.